The DYAD in the FORCE.
Let's watch the worst plot holes in the sequel trilogy. Now,
Yeah.
I don't have any confidence that this video knows what a plot hole is.
I mean, we've had some weird experiences, especially with that lately. If you know, you know. But again, as the dyad, we are always open for criticism. We're open for whatever. So let's see. Let's hear them out. We're gonna go into this good faith, and we'll see if we can find some plot holes.
Now, before we get into it, of course, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And I would like to just say the disclaimer here. We don't care if you hate the sequels or like the sequels. We're not doing this to change your minds. We're going to see what this person says, what this person posits as a plot hole, and we're going to try our best to dispel it if it is not a plot hole.
Well, just as a quick rubric, what is a plot hole?
A plot hole is a hole in the plot that severely ruins the coherence of the narrative. Now, this could be 2 points in time where something exists, and in the middle, it just creates a disconnect between the two. Like, the simplest example that I give is if someone is 10 years old in one movie, and 5 years later, they introduce themselves to be 20 years old. That's a literal plot hole. It's incoherence. Like there's a chronological disparity there. What isn't a plot hole?
It's just questions that you have.
Yes.
Over and over again, things happen within the sequel trilogy that, at best, make no sense, go against the established lore, and break the canon of Star Wars that we all know and love. So in this video,
this guy doesn't know ball. I got you. All right.
I mean, the first thing we'll say is none of it breaks canon. But yeah,
he also used the wrong version of canon.
And we're gonna be ranking them from best to worst.
Okay.
And when I say best to worst, I mean like least lore breaking to most lore breaking.
What are the chances this person knows the lore?
We'll have to see. We've gone through this with a fine tooth comb, so I'm curious if he found something we didn't.
Okay.
Narrowing it down to just 10 was hard enough as it is because there were just so many, but without further ado, let's get into it.
I'm losing confidence by the second.
Absolutely. So I've often had people in my comment section say there's so many plot holes, and I asked them, like what? Crickets. Every
it's either
time.
Crickets or they point to things that they just don't like the answers.
So know? This is following the same type of pathway, but again, they could surprise us.
And at number 10, we have the creation and existence of the Final Order fleet on Exagol. Basically, Kylo Ren shows up on a secret Sith planet that no one should ever have been able to find without a special wayfinder, and there he meets Emperor Palpatine, who has returned from the dead. I actually made a whole video about just this topic a couple months ago, but for the sake of this video, I'll go over the big points for you.
We will let him go over the big points, but just off rip, this isn't a plot hole. This is literally, you don't like that this happened.
This is just regular plot. This is regular continuity. This is regular storytelling. He mentions he finds a Sith Wayfinder that no one should ever be able to find without a Sith Wayfinder. And you're like, yeah, that's correct. The people who have been sequestered to that planet stay there. And so like there's not a lot of travel to and from there, but that's not a plot hole. The existence of the fleet itself, also not a plot hole.
First of all, who the heck made this fleet?
The Sith Eternal made the fleet.
Again, this is not a plot hole. This is stuff that actually gets answered in a lot of the extended canon, which would be books. So you'd have to read those books. But it is not a plot hole in that it doesn't destroy the coherence of the plot.
But you shouldn't have to read external media in order to understand the story.
Yeah, you don't have to.
That's always what we get told when we mention something that you find out from other places. But like, if you watched the original Star Wars when it first came out, and you're like, where did this fleet come from?
Where did the second Death Star come from? Who made that?
We know. Yeah. So this is par for the course, and that's one of the things that always irritates me is when you are unable to look at all of Star Wars at the same level. But yeah, not a plot hole at all. Also, I just wanted to point out that each one of those. Well, he says thousands and thousands of ships. I don't know that I'd say it's that many. I think that's an exaggeration, but there is certainly a lot of them. But the fact that they all have planet destroying lasers, I feel like he was hinting that would be problematic.
I do want to point out this: we're off to a great start because already we're dealing with the fallacy of personal incredulity. It doesn't make sense to me. That's not a plot hole. It just doesn't make sense to you.
So how did all these Imperial lackeys get here to build these thousands and thousands of massive warships?
They were brought there.
Yes. This is what I'm talking about. So you don't need to know this to understand the plot of the movie. The Rise of Skywalker is really low on our Star Wars rankings. We're not here to defend it, but we are here to educate people on the coherence of plot. You don't need to know any of this to understand the plot. But if you'd like to know more, you can read Aftermath. You can read all of these extended canon books that show you that there was a plan by Palpatine called the Contingency that rolled into how people arrived on Exagol, how he found the planet, and how the Sith Eternal have been doing this for all these years.
And also, just so you guys know, like, it was always Palpatine's plan for the Sith to rule. Essentially, that means not necessarily the Empire. The Empire was the hollowed out carcass of the Republic. He pulled all of the very specific loyalists to either directly him or to the Sith. And those were the people that were selected to be part of this other order. He was always going to scuttle, the Empire once it served its purpose.
Again, you don't need to know extended canon to understand the movie. We're just saying that this stuff does have answers.
This just makes being able to destroy a planet so easy, and it actually loses all the weight that it ever had.
This is where the video is from that I just stitched.
A massive plot hole. And now the reason it's not higher on the list is partially because technically this could be explained. Not well, mind you, but you could say, the Star Destroyers were built by Imperial officers who were on Exagol for years and never left after the Empire fell. And the reason that the Star Destroyers can blow up a planet is because technology got better.
I feel like
yeah,
he just answered his own question. In an effort to not give credit where credit is due, he brushes that off as if it's not a good explanation for it. I actually stitched this video in my TikTok, and I went over this. It took them 20 years to perfect the laser. Galen Erso was a crystallographer. All of those years of development and R&D was for the laser. It wasn't about the big moon Death Star, the big moon battle station. And subsequently, it's not about the Star Killer base and it being inside a planet. They were perfecting the laser.
The Death Star is a mobile battle station. That's what it is. People only think of the laser weapon, but that was installed last. It is a mobile. They can park that in a system and rule the whole system from that battle station. It doesn't have to be that size. It never had to be that size. But if you like that level of technological growth, I mean, in the 60s, a computer was the size of an entire room. My dad was a computer programmer, and he was sliding punch cards into a machine. And now I have like the whole wealth of human knowledge in my hand.
The evolution of technology is low-hanging fruit when explaining this. But the reason I point to the fact that it took them 20 years to perfect the Death Star laser is to point at how once they perfected it, it's like steep from there for progress. Once they perfected computing, we have it in the palm of our hands. Once they perfected the laser, which took them 20 years to perfect, they started building other Death Stars in the background. That's why in just 4 years in the original trilogy, they almost finished another Death Star. So once they had perfected the weapon, all they needed to do...
You think they're not going to make more weapons?
You just need to iterate on that laser, and then that's it.
You think after they figured out the atom bomb, they just stopped making large bombs? Like, I don't get it.
Well, that's
actually
a great point, because after World War II, the bombs got small. I mean, there's literal small packages that are
Yeah.
a bigger payload than there would be in World War II. Those bombs back in the World War II were kind of massive because they didn't work out the technology. But in this case, it took them 20 years. The Empire, it took them 20 years to perfect the laser. They're going to iterate after that. Sure, you're putting one on a Star Destroyer, the Zeiston class Star Destroyers, but there's a massive trade-off there. It's easier to destroy a Star Destroyer.
Regardless, that's the final order fleet, and let's move on to number 9. At number 9, we have the Knights of Ren being talked about a whole bunch, but almost never actually explained or used.
We're just gonna fly right by this one. That's not a plot hole. It's just literally them being underutilized. That's it.
And they weren't talked about a lot.
No, they weren't, actually. They're actually talked about a lot more in the extended canon, and they're used a lot more in extended canon. I feel like this feeling comes from people that wanted them to be used a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's definitely a content creator issue, because we were freeze framing the trailer for The Force Awakens. We're like, who are these guys? They look so cool. They better have a big part. You know what I mean? But like, what? We saw them briefly in the flashback, and he said leader of the Knights of Ren in The Force Awakens. That's it.
Yeah.
They are not mentioned in The Last Jedi, and then they show up in Rise of Skywalker.
And even then, when they show up in The Rise of Skywalker, they're walking around in Basana, like chasing them down, and then they're marching.
Yeah,
down
they use them
the
as hunters.
There's nothing really to suggest that the Knights of Ren play a huge, significant role in the narrative, which doesn't make it a plot hole, because they were just underutilized. Would I have liked to seen them use a lot more? Probably. But that's a problem for me. That's not a plot hole.
Or a farm throughout all those scenes, never do anything, and then get killed by Kylo Ren as soon as it's convenient for the script. And
I like how all of those scenes, he shows the 2 scenes that they appear.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of them. It's almost like J.J. Abrams was writing his script.
I also like how he said that he killed them when it was convenient for the script. Like, that's how storytelling works.
Literally, that's how the hero wins in a lot of movies.
And he remembered that these guys exist, and he's like, you know what? Throw them in the movie. Give them a little screen time. Give them their time to shine. And then halfway through the movie, he was like, you know what? I think planet-destroying Star Destroyers are cooler.
See, this is a viewership problem. I agree with him. JJ was probably like, you know what? Throw them in the movie. Give them some time to shine. But the conclusion wasn't screw those guys. The conclusion was they've served their purpose. It's time for them to go.
Who are the Knights of Ren? I guess we'll never know.
But that doesn't make it a plot hole.
Yeah, I mean, that would is Boba Fett a plot hole? Like, I don't know.
Using his logic, Star Wars is riddled. It's not just the sequels. It's riddled with plot holes. If you were to define it as, I don't have the answer for this.
I saw a character who I thought looked cool, and I wanted more story from them. Okay, sure.
Number 8. Number 8 is really, really straightforward. It's just Maz Kanata having Luke's old lightsaber.
I don't need to watch this. That's not a plot hole. Where did Luke get his green lightsaber in Return of the Jedi? These are all questions that you don't have the answer to. There are answers in extended canon.
Yeah.
But you don't have the answer to. Knowing where Maz Kanata gets the lightsaber does not enhance your understanding of the plot. You know that she has it. Han says, where did you get this? The implication there is that, she got it somehow. But the fact that you don't know where she got it does not keep you from understanding the story.
Was it collected by a bounty hunter? Did it fall into Maz's lap when she was practicing her piccolo for the big recital on Thursday?
Okay, I will just answer it, because we do have the answer in extended canon. It fell into the trash heap on Bespin. A couple of Ugnaughts found it, and the Ugnaughts put it onto the black market. That's how she got it.
I guess we'll never know. Without an explanation, it makes no sense at all that she would have it, and it makes lightsabers and other important items seem kind of less meaningful.
Another fallacy of personal incredulity. I need people to stop saying it doesn't make sense to me, therefore it is a plot hole.
And also to say it's less meaningful now is wild. If that's how you feel, then sure, whatever. But that's a personal thing.
Random people could just get their hands on them willy-nilly. Like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot to this plot hole. It just doesn't make sense that Maz would have it, and she never explains how she ended up getting it.
Yeah, it's not a plot hole. We keep on saying personal incredulity. If it doesn't make sense to you how she has it, I mean, it's okay for you to say that, but it's not a plot hole because of it. Knowing where she got it doesn't change anything.
Now, at number 7, this next plot hole is one that I don't hear get talked about very much, and it's actually very indicative of the difference between George Lucas's Star Wars and Disney's Star Wars. And it's that there are no consequences whatsoever for Rey killing Palpatine.
She died.
She died. What consequences is it supposed to be? I don't. Okay.
Just for my own sanity, Rey isn't even a top 10 character for me. Like I said, like we say, we don't care if you hate or like these movies. We're just trying to argue for logic and truth. That's literal consequence.
Listen, I've had interactions with people at Lucasfilm, and like, I want people with valid complaints to get those heard. That's how we get better content. But when we get drowned out by random stuff that's not an issue, they don't hear it. And if they don't hear it, then they just ignore it. They write everyone off as this type of person. And so that's why we try to correct this information.
I'm going to give him like a couple of points. Let's see.
And now, that might sound a little confusing, but just let me explain. Remember back in episode 6, Return of the Jedi, when Luke, Vader, and Palpatine are in the throne room together? One of the huge plot points in that scene is that Luke refuses to kill Palpatine, even when Palpatine tries to goad him into it, because he senses that killing Palpatine in hate and anger would turn him to the dark side too, like his...
No, I think you're misremembering that scene.
Luke tries to kill him.
Luke swings at Palpatine. Vader is the one that stops him. Now this is my favorite part about extended canon, because we later on find out in extended canon that Palpatine was proposing to Luke to become a vessel, just like he had proposed to Anakin. He says that he had his father there to save him. And it kind of changes the framing of why Vader stopped him from swinging at Palpatine. He was trying to prevent his son from becoming a vessel.
It's not Vader protecting his master, it's a father protecting the son.
Absolutely.
But when Rey is fighting Palpatine all these years later, she ends up killing him in rage and anger, and yet in doing so, does not turn to the dark side.
She doesn't strike him down in rage and anger.
No.
She doesn't strike him down at all. He kills himself using his own power.
Exactly. It is literally how Mace was holding Palpatine down in his chambers.
Experience any real temptation to do so. This completely goes against the earlier themes of anger and hate corrupting, and doesn't line up at all with the lore that was established literally decades earlier.
I'll tell you about the lore that was established decades earlier. Knowledge and defense. Rey defeats Palpatine in defense. Now, if we go to the extended canon of the novelization, it says literally Palpatine is destroying himself with his own lightning. And we can see it in the movie. You don't need the book, but you can see in the movie it's a reflection. She's not striking him down.
It's not even... I mean, he directly tells her, strike me down in anger and take my place. And like, she doesn't. I don't understand.
So we already explained away how...
And yes, anger and hatred do corrupt, and that's a big part of Rise of Skywalker as well. She's afraid that that's the path she's going to go down. She's afraid she's destined to, because she just has that urge, and like that's the story.
You're also forgetting, prior to this, she's being encouraged and hyped up by the Jedi. The heart of the Jedi lies her strength. Let it guide you as it guided us. She is reflecting the lightning. She is not striking
Bring back
him
the
down in
balance as
anger.
I did.
Yeah. There is no consequence there because she's not being tempted by the dark side. She is defending against Palpatine's dark side. But if we talk about consequence in the literal sense, she dies. She's saved by Ben, and Ben dies. So she literally loses her life and loses another life. I don't like that ending. But that is
the ending.
But that's the ending. It's coherent. I understood it. That's not a plot hole.
Then his spirit would possess her because, you know, she's his granddaughter and the rule of two must be preserved and all that. But that just doesn't end up happening and isn't talked about again.
Because she doesn't strike him down.
It isn't talked about it because that's the end of the movie.
It's something that George Lucas really cared about and put a lot of thought into, but that Disney clearly didn't and thought wasn't important enough to really dive into or explain.
It wasn't that hard to understand. So I'm saying this with the most amount of charity I can throw at this creator. If you need them to explain this particular conflict of light and dark, and you thought Rey was literally reflecting lightning back in rage and anger, and that was the dark side, that's a viewership problem. We were already presented with the narrative that Palpatine wants her to strike him down in anger, just like Luke. She doesn't do it. She teleports the lightsaber away using the dyad, and then, after being encouraged by all of the Jedi, she defends against Palpatine's attack, and he destroys himself. That's how I understand that narrative. Nothing doesn't make sense to me. I can still dislike that ending, but it makes sense.
Now, at this point, the plot holes are getting pretty bad, and they're only going to get worse the farther up this list we move. But
now, at this point, you have not once listed a plot hole.
If this is pretty bad, then I actually feel pretty good about the movies.
you would never know how the First Order came into existence a mere 30 years after the Empire fell.
You want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of Imperial remnants, people who sympathize with the Imperial position, people who wanted to make the galaxy great again. They admired the Empire's strength, but thought, oh, if we can have a different leader, then we could do it better.
To go off of that point, this is not a plot hole. You can literally see that the First Order troopers share a resemblance in armor to stormtroopers. This is obviously a continuation of the Empire, and you can do the internal calculus if you want. Maybe they're leftover Empire sympathizers or leftover Imperials. That's it. But not knowing where they came from specifically does not hinder your ability to understand what's going on in this narrative.
In fact, I'd argue the opposite. Like, the story that's being told is largely from Rey's perspective. Where they came from is not relevant to the story that's being told. You know, it's information I wanted to have. It's information I got from other places, but it's not information that's needed for the story.
And even though they never really specify, they kind of hint that the First Order is like a terrorist faction that operates in the outer rim of the galaxy.
Okay.
Just so he understands.
You understand.
If that is the case, then why does the New Republic let them? Where do they get their funding and members?
This is what happens when, you know, there are sympathizers within the government and you get money that's funneled. It's the same way as money laundering, how that works, organized crime. Things get laundered and get funneled into cartels and mobs and mafias. And
so to be specific, especially after Jabba the Hutt fell, there was a big criminal vacuum, and that was filled by Rin Riven Dai and his gang, and a lot of that money was being funneled to the First Order.
Now, I will say, the New Republic does kind of let them, but it's a whole kind of political jousting thing that happens.
That's how politics work. They're like, okay, there's these people and they're way out there. Should we intervene or not? And they voted not to. You know what I mean? Like that's something that that's something that happens, you know?
Yeah. But I'd argue, first and foremost, it's not an argument to say this isn't a plot hole, but I would argue that the New Republic being blindsided by this is just, kind of history.
Who started it? And how did the New Republic not know about Starkiller Base? Because when Starkiller Base is ready, the first thing they do is say that this is the end of the New Republic, which kind of implies that the New Republic is way more established and powerful than the First Order. And then the First Order blows up like 5 planets that are apparently the bigger planets of the New Republic.
So if this information was widely known, then you're right. It wouldn't make sense that the New Republic was blindsided. But the fact is, they're a faction from the unknown regions operating largely in the shadows that are able to destroy the New Republic capital with a Starkiller base because this information isn't widely known. We know from extended canon that Leia was, getting bits and pieces of information and bringing it forth to the Senate, but she was being shut down. That's why she had to create this new resistance, unsanctioned.
Oh, so they care enough to send Princess Leia and a few measly X-Wings, but heavens forbid that the entire New Republic military might fights the enemy that wants to obliterate them and everything they stand for.
So, no, they didn't send Leia. Like I said just now,
Leia did her own investigations and basically largely severed her ties with the New Republic in order to investigate and do something about the First Order, because she believed them to be a credible threat. No one else did.
The people that we see fighting the First Order are of Leia's resistance. That has nothing to do with the New Republic. The New Republic's military, so a lot of people will talk about the demilitarization of the New Republic. They still had a defense force. But even then, we see in the movie, as the Starkiller base is destroying Hosnian system, all of the military vessels get destroyed along with them. So they literally were blindsided. They had no military to send to fight. We were lucky that Leia had a resistance to begin with.
Good for you. Genuinely, I'm glad you have an interest in that. But I shouldn't have to read a third-party book to understand the basic premise of the movie.
You don't.
Yeah, you don't.
It's not relevant to the plot of the movie.
If you don't understand the basic premise of the movie, just from this, not knowing where they came from, that's a you problem.
That's the equivalent of watching, I don't know, a James Bond movie, and then you're like, how does he know how to drive a car? Who taught him how to drive cars?
You could read that stuff too and find out all of those answers. Like we've been saying this entire video, you don't need to read extended canon to find these answers or to understand the movies, but you can find the answers if you want to search for them.
Likewise, when you watch A New Hope, they destroy Alderaan. We don't know anything about Alderaan. We don't know what it's like or the people. We don't fully know everything about the Empire, where those ships came from and all this stuff. But that stuff is not relevant to Luke's plot, so we don't need to.
At number 5, this is the first one that's actually directly about Rey, and I'm sure that some of you have been waiting for this one because it's a pretty well-known plot hole. She uses a Jedi mind trick to get a guard to unlock her from her restraints, and uses the Force to pull a lightsaber to her instead of Kylo Ren.
I'm going to be as simple as I can be so that everyone understands this. The Force is instinct first, technical later. In all of the movies in Star Wars, the first thing that the mentor says to the mentee is, use your instincts. In A New Hope, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he says, let go your conscious self and act on instinct. And Luke is deflecting blasters. He has no prior training whatsoever. Same thing with Anakin, with pod racing, and Qui-Gon Jinn. Use your instincts. Much of this comes from instinct. Ezra Bridger uses Force Push on Callus to save Zeb in Rebels.
With the first episode, he uses Force Jump because that boy had some hops.
Additional thing I will say is that many people attribute Force abilities to advanced usage. Anybody can use them if you have any experience with the Force. She doesn't learn it from Han. She knows what the Force is. The only thing she says in her conversation with Han is, then the Jedi were real. So she has prior knowledge of the Jedi and what they were. But she also gets the mentor speech from Maz Kanata before this. Feel it. the light. It's always been there. It surrounds you. It guides you. You know? Maz Kanata is Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon to Rey. And so when Rey uses the mind trick, it's not like she like does it masterfully. It takes her a couple of tries. I'd say that's sloppy. Even in like the EU, there are people that have used the mind trick unknowingly because it's a part of the Force.
It's this weird idea I see from people that it is a high level Force ability that takes like years and years of training. No one told you that. Where did you get that from? And the counter to it is to just be smart. Like, I mean, the reason that it'll work on a stormtrooper is they're just very simple minded, you know, and certain people are naturally good at certain things. You know, Anakin was using the Force before he knew what it was. Luke was using the Force before he knew what it was. We saw a little Rhodian, you know, child floating balls. You know, it's another sense. Like, no one had to teach you how to see things, how to touch things, how to smell things. It was just instinct. You can learn fine tuning later, but again, nothing she does here. And it's even simpler, especially with the mind trick, because it was just done to her. And then she's like, okay, I know how that feels. I'll do that to someone else.
Also, another thing, if you go to the Clone Wars Children of the Force, you see a literal infant levitating. So if this person's going to go into lifting boulders, that's like the most instinctual thing you could possibly use with the Force. This is why children displaying Force sensitivity was sometimes very dangerous for parents, and that's why they sent them off to be trained with the Jedi. This stuff just happens instinctually. And the thing that they have to train with the Jedi to do is to do it with control. But none of them needed the Jedi to use the Force.
Control. You must learn control. Yeah. No, the thing that gets me more than anything else is, like, how do you think they figure out kids are Force sensitive? Those kids use the Force.
Yes.
Like, did we not see, like, little baby Ahsoka use the Force on a big, you know, wolf monster thing and connect with its mind? Like, who taught her that?
Who taught Luke how to pull the lightsaber with telekinesis in Empire Strikes Back? That's not a plot hole, mind you. That is a question that you would have as a viewer, but it's not a plot hole. Understanding where he learned that doesn't, you know, enhance your understanding of the movie or the narrative.
I've always loved, like, electric based powers, and so as a kid, when I saw Palpatine start throwing out lightning, blew my mind. But what was that? Where did that come from? Who taught him that? We had never seen that before. We had no indication that you could shoot lightning out.
We had no indication the Emperor was powerful. Like, if you think about it, if we really think about back to the originals, the only thing Vader ever said was, "You don't know the power of the dark side. I must obey my master." And you see this robed figure, he's the Emperor. So we can use our fantastical minds to kind of infer, hey, this is a person of power, at the very least, an Emperor. But we find out towards the end of the trilogy, oh, he's got some power. But we never, like, questioned that.
That shriveled up old ball sack has actually got some skills.
And then we go on to the prequels, and we see him flipping around like Yoda.
Now you might be saying to yourself, Jedward, didn't Anakin and Luke both do something similar right after they learned that they had the Force too? And the answer to that, my dear viewer, is yes and no. First, Anakin was already an exceptional pilot at a very young age and had incredible reflexes which allowed him to blow up the Trade Federation command ship.
What were those reflexes called?
It's called a future sight with the Force.
No, I mean, Qui-Gon says...
Double vision?
Qui-Gon says, you have Jedi reflexes. He's using the Force. This isn't Anakin at 9 years old having incredible, exceptional reflexes. This isn't a 9-year-old being an exceptional pilot. This is Anakin using the Force.
Do you stop to ask yourself why a 9-year-old is an exceptional pilot?
The Force didn't play that big of a role in that.
The Force played all of the role in it. He says it in the movie. Humans can't pod race, but he can. Why? Because he has Jedi reflexes, which are the Force.
He was just a good pilot. Yeah, granted, maybe with the help of the Force, but in general, for a young guy, he was a very good pilot.
This seems like to be the number one thing we get when we're arguing for very basic usage, instinctual usage of the Force. Yeah, I might have used the Force with Anakin and Luke, but it's just generally. Like, no. All of them use the Force instinctually. They're either all Mary Sue's or they're not Mary Sue's.
And as for Luke, first of all, I just want to clarify that on this channel, you can go back, I have always said that it is a little bit of a Mary Sue moment when Luke is able to blow up the Death Star with the Force after he just learns he had it. I've always said that, but it's not as much as Rey. And also, on top of that, yes, Luke did use the Force to blow up the Death Star, but that was a much lesser use of the Force.
What do you mean?
That's a way bigger usage of the Force. Like, that's a way more difficult and unique, like, thing. You know, Red Leader couldn't make the shot.
It's a 2-meter hole. You know how big 2 meters are when you're in a freaking space battle? Imagine trying to make a full court shot with a basketball from outside the stadium. That is a 2-meter shot from space.
But your eyes are closed.
Exactly. That is a large use of the Force, especially given his experience with it, like you said, with Obi-Wan. Let go of your conscious self, act on instinct, and then he does this. What does Obi-Wan say before he does this? Use the Force, Luke. Like, we accept it because it's the Force. The Force is the Deus Ex Machina in all of Star Wars. We don't have to understand how it works on a granular level. It just helps our protagonists.
And all he had to do was reach out and feel for the right moment to fire. Presumably a lot easier than actively mind controlling a stormtrooper or pulling a lightsaber to you through the snow.
No, all she had to do was reach out, wait for the right moment. I'm using your words against you, bro. Blowing up the Death Star is not a big deal. He just had to reach out and wait for the right moment. She's not mind controlling a stormtrooper, right? The mind trick is a suggestive tool. She tells him, hey, do this, and they'll do it, and then just walk off. She's not mind controlling him. As for pulling the lightsaber, again, it's a very basic TK. That's not very advanced at all. Children do it all the time in Star Wars.
I wouldn't totally disagree that both Anakin and Luke do have kind of a Mary Sue moment here, to a lesser extent, but Rey being so strong with the Force and able to use such, abilities that require so much strength and training right off the bat is genuinely a plot hole.
I'll let you take this.
So much strength? What does strength have to do with it? It's concentration, it's focus. Like, you aren't doing it. The Force is doing it. You're asking the Force to do it. But I feel like I also feel like a lot of people think of the Force as more as a superpower versus it is an energy force that you are communicating with.
Not a plot hole, but also we hear this all the time. These are problems that are created by the viewer. Nowhere in Star Wars does it say these abilities require massive amounts of training. You're the one that's saying it requires massive amounts of strength, and you're the one that's saying it requires a massive amount of training. Nowhere in Star Wars has that been established.
And again, a lot of these complaints all come from people who want to be mad. They want to be mad at something, and so they'll make up a rule, and then when this breaks this random rule that they made up, now it's their fault and they're the bad ones. But like, again, this is all bad viewership.
For the fourth biggest plot hole that the sequel trilogy introduced, we have the confusing mess that was Supreme Leader Snoke. In The Force Awakens, he really does seem like he's gonna be the big bad guy for the trilogy, but then in literally the next film, Rian Johnson kills him off out of nowhere, cause it's better storytelling to subvert the audience expectations than, have the main villain live.
I will agree with you. It's better storytelling to subvert audience expectation, but I don't agree with you that there was a main villain. It was still the second movie.
Again, you made an assumption and your theory didn't pan out. That's all that happened. That's okay. Who is Snoke? What is Snoke? I mean, we find information on that in the next film. You know, who is Palpatine? What is Palpatine? We don't get. We don't even get the name.
Why
Palpatine.
is Palpatine?
I'm sorry, not a plot hole.
Yeah, this entire video has just been either I had expectations, I don't like the answers to these questions, I don't have the answers to these questions, this doesn't make sense to me. And throughout this entire video, we have not ventured or rolled across any hole of which is part of a plot hole.
He was big, he was strong, he was intimidating, he was super powerful with the Force in The Last Jedi. I was interested.
Yeah, I mean, just like we said, this is all stuff that you had built up in your mind and had your expectations subverted by Rian Johnson. You got mad about it, but it doesn't make it a plot hole. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're wrong for feeling these feelings, but it's not a plot hole.
I will say you're watching movies wrong.
True.
You need to listen to the story that's being told, not the story that you are expecting or wanting. You know, and if you follow that, then you won't be blindsided.
Number 3, we have Princess Leia flying through space.
She didn't fly in space. She reeled herself in with the Force. And if you're in the vacuum of space, you are weightless. So like it's actually super duper easy.
Let's see if his first point matches with how everything's been tracking so far.
Basically, some TIE fighters blow up the command center of her ship, and when it explodes, it sucks her into the vacuum of space, where she sits for like 3 minutes. But then, some soft, uplifting music starts to play, and she opens her eyes, her frozen fingers thaw out and crack back to life, and she flies back to the ship like Superman, hand outstretched and everything. This is an insane ability, and no one in Star Wars has ever used the Force to be able to do anything like this.
Satele Shan. I say that because Satele Shan's my favorite character. But yeah, I mean, Jedi throughout the history, even in the EU and Legends, have used barriers, force barriers, to create bubbles of air. If you go frame by frame in that scene, you can see that there are particles that are pushed away from Leia as she's moving through space, and it's not touching her skin. So I don't know if that's like a coincidence or they were like playing 4D chess with the VFX, but you can see there's a force field around Leia through the particles.
I mean, I know that was intentional, because even when she comes back in through the ship, the way she cuts through the hologram, you know, mimics the Holdo maneuver that you see later in the movie. So like, but more than that, yes, Jedi have always been able to use the Force to do things like. How do you think the Jedi jump out of planes without a parachute? It's just the opposite of reeling yourself in. It's using the Force to cushion your fall, to slow your fall. But like it's the same exact concept.
I'd also like to add that this is another personal incredulity fallacy. No one in the history of the Force has been able to do anything like this. Does not mean it's not possible. We hear this all the time when it comes to Force abilities. Some fans have this closed off notion that what we've seen of the Force is exactly what is possible. That is the upper limit, the upper ceiling of what we'll ever see with the Force, and everything else is impossible. That's not how the Force works. Anytime we see something done with the Force, it's done in context of that narrative. But there's no movie or show that's going to show you a Jedi that is doing everything that is ever possible. This whole notion that you've never seen it before, therefore it's impossible, is a you problem. You're creating that upper limit.
Oh, and also, why don't you answer from canon? Why didn't the Jedi do mind tricks more often?
They were skirting the line of the dark side. It was called mind touch. Using that was frowned upon.
Yeah, I mean it's largely unethical.
Yes.
To do it. A great example, it's done in the High Republic in order to get information, and they know these people are still holding back more secrets, but they're like, they are entitled to have secrets, right? We're not entitled to everything, you know?
Anyways, we're going to skip forward because, yeah, Leia can do this. She knows how to use the Force. She was trained by Luke. Just because you haven't seen it before doesn't mean it's not possible.
The abilities that the Force has been established to give Jedi and Sith and other Force users make sense for what an invisible energy field would do for you. Like,
again, I point to the fact that you're creating these limits on the Force that don't exist.
foresight, telekinesis, mind control, those all make sense for an invisible energy field to bestow upon you. But
what?
Yeah, he has no idea what he is. He does not know ball.
I mean, I thought you would come to that conclusion when you mentioned invisible energy field.
You can also use the Force to sustain you, which has been seen a lot.
it just doesn't go in the realm of comprehension. It's just so...
Wait a second. So, Leia lasting for like a minute in space is crazy. But like Maul being cut in half and falling down a pit and then showing up later
for years
with spider legs makes sense. Like, is Clone Wars a bad show? When Maul got his magic legs, I don't know, man. Like,
I also want to address this. Doesn't go in the realm of comprehension, bro. We are in a fantasy franchise. I don't necessarily comprehend fully how Leia did it. I just know that she has the Force. You could somehow do a pocket of air. You could do something with the Force to create some kind of field to survive. This is all inference. But not having the comprehension or the explicit detail as to how she survived doesn't make a plot hole.
We have somehow Palpatine returned. I don't even have to explain what I'm as foretold by the prophecy of the Chosen One just came back out of nowhere.
Nope.
This guy doesn't even know what the prophecy says.
Nope, doesn't at all. First of all, it doesn't really ruin the prophecy because the prophecy says through him will ultimate balance be restored. And if we follow the trajectory from Anakin and Padme to Luke and Leia training Rey and Ben, through him ultimate balance was restored. But we get the quote from Anakin in The Rise of Skywalker anyway, where he says, "Bring back the balance, Rey, like I did." The return of Palpatine isn't just reduced down to Poe saying somehow. That's just Poe because he doesn't know how. Now, if you press play after Poe says somehow, we have a historian like Beaumont Kin who posits various methods. You know, dark arts, Sith alchemy, secrets only the Sith knew, cloning. And this is all stuff that's established by previous lore and previous canon. Palpatine has been experimenting with cloning, and we get it in The Mandalorian. He's experimenting with blood, M counts, and strand casting. So we have the answers to it. We didn't need to know the answer to understand the movie. This is also one of my biggest pet peeves with The Rise of Skywalker because they essentially brought Palpatine back through a Fortnite broadcast, which I did not love at all. That was horrible. My main contention with The Rise of Skywalker is the execution of his return. But as a fan of Star Wars, having read extended canon and knowing all of the telltale signs, I mean, I knew he was coming back. It wasn't out of nowhere.
Everyone expected Palpatine to come back. Like, okay, so from the beginning, J.J. Abrams was very clear that Kylo Ren is not a Sith and that Snoke is not a Sith. But he still talked about the Sith, which meant that there is someone behind pulling the strings, right? That this is something you would know. And they even have art that shows like a scary amorphous blob behind a character. So you're going to tell me the guy with all of the contingency plans, with all of the resources, with a ton of Sith knowledge. By the way, if you're a fan, especially of the expanded universe, the Sith are always trying to live longer. They're always trying to come back in one way or another. You're surprised that Palpatine used the stuff that he had at his fingertips to do the same thing? I don't know. I don't know how you could be surprised by this, especially because everyone knew that he'd be coming back. You read the Thrawn trilogy from Legends, and what did they have at Mount Tantus, right? The Spa-RT cloning cylinders. And they're using them to clone Force sensitives, right? Palpatine comes back. This is not new,
he
it's
came
not
back
crazy.
the same way. Like
Yeah.
he his clone came back, tried to offer Luke like a fleet of world devastators in the same way he offers Kylo the fleet of the Final Order ships. Like it's all kind of part and parcel for how it happens in Dark Empire. Now obviously it happens during a time where Luke is younger and Luke is the main character of that story, but he still comes back in the EU, and he has like vats and vats of clones.
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of spares too. And then, like and this method was even like very clearly outlined in the Bane trilogy as well. I don't know, man. This is it's just wild. It's just wild that we have to discuss these things. Like it should be very clear how he would come back. And does that mean that it was good?
No.
That it was a great decision to happen? That it was executed well? No, I'm not saying any of those things. All I'm saying is that to say it doesn't make sense or to say that it breaks Star Wars lore is objectively wrong.
And this is essentially where we come down in all of this. Like, again, like it or hate it or whatever, I don't like how they brought Palpatine back, even though I knew and it made sense that he would come back. I don't like the execution. And I'm not coming down on this creator for thinking that it breaks lore. I just know that between Choco and I, he doesn't know ball. He doesn't know the lore in which he is positing or asserting the lore has been broken. With the DYAD in the Force community, with Choco and I, we never come down on anyone for not knowing the lore or the deep substrates of knowledge
Calcite.
of Star Wars. That's not what makes you a fan. You're not a lesser fan for not knowing all of the lore, for not reading all of extended canon, for not reading Legends. But if you are going to pretend and assert that lore has been broken, if you are going to make videos talking about lore breaking decisions and this story breaking canon, you're gonna have to know canon. You're gonna have to know the lore. Otherwise, you're just making assertions without any evidence. And that's what this is all about. We welcome Star Wars fans of all shapes and sizes and knowledge bases. We talk to Star Wars fans who are new fans that came in through The Mandalorian, through Andor. Your extensive knowledge is not what makes you a fan. But if you're gonna be a creator and you're gonna assert and make some claims about lore being broken, you better know your lore.
But in my opinion, the worst plot hole in all of Star Wars, and especially the sequel trilogy, is the Holdo maneuver. The idea that going into hyperspace will automatically destroy a much bigger object completely makes so much of Star Wars useless and pointless. Like,
no, and we'll end the video here because we've given a lot of grace to this creator already, but the Holdo maneuver is not a plot hole. They're not asserting that going through hyperspace is going to destroy much bigger objects. What is happening here is that she is using the velocity, the entrance velocity of hyperspace, in conjunction with the shields on the Radis to create what does the Flash call it? An infinite mass punch.
Yeah.
That's how it's working.
It's very hard to do. It's very easy to guard against. It's super wasteful on resources. There's no benefit to doing it. They wouldn't need to do it before this because they've always been able to jump away safely. This is the first time that they have seen technology that allows them to be tracked through hyperspace without actually attaching something to their ship. And so this is the first time it's ever been necessary. Hopefully that in and of itself takes care of all of these complaints. There's going to be like, oh, why doesn't everyone do it? like because the rebels would lose. Why don't they hyperspeed into the Death Star? It wouldn't destroy the Death Star. And also they destroyed the Death Star with torpedoes. So like the Death Star was destroyed by a chain reaction causing its destruction, but it barely it only scuttled that ship, and that ship is a fraction of the size of the Death Star. It wouldn't have destroyed the Death Star even if they flew their entire fleet into it. It's not anything new. We've seen things hyperspace jump oddly. We've seen Anakin jump the Malevolence into a planet to destroy it, and we've also seen a case where they were docking their ship inside of a Republic ship, and its hyperdrive activated, and they had to get out so that they didn't destroy themselves and the other ship.
Hopefully it should. I mean, we know ball, and I'm like that phrase is in my head because Choco's been saying it all night. But like, this is not a plot hole. Can you dislike this Holdo maneuver? Yes. Can you say it's a pretty bad? It's like I don't know. It's the worst thing in the movies. Fine, that's your opinion. It is not a plot hole.
I thought of a couple more. Why don't they just attach hyperdrives to like asteroids and run them into things? Because first of all, you can't really do that. Plus, how would you aim it? Like, and by the way, you're not just aiming at something going zoom. You're jumping to a point that is light years away. And you're trying to put your target in between yourself and that point. And they can see when your hyperdrive spools, so they would have a very easy time dodging you or shooting you out of the sky. Why don't they just use droids in order to do them? Because droids aren't that accurate in Star Wars. If they were that accurate, then the Clone Wars would have wiped out everyone.
The basic answer for all of this, like you mentioned, it's easy to defend for. It's easy to counter. As soon as they knew what Holdo was doing, they said fire on that ship. But because they were, laser focused on firing on the transports, they didn't have time to acquire the target. And it happened.
They were literally told to ignore her at first.
Yeah.
No, it's a distraction. Ignore her. Otherwise, they would have shot her out of the sky.
With the hyperspace drives on asteroids, I'm just going to say it. Hyperspace drives are not like GPUs. They require fuel. They require a reactor. They require a lot. So just installing hyperdrives on an asteroid, you're just putting a drive on it. There's no other components to fuel it, to power it. Come on, guys. You can't just install that stuff.
Going out behind your house and dropping a V8 engine on a boulder and being like,
man,
go.
This should be at least 800 horsepowers.
Does it got a Gallo 12?
You see like a Hemi in the backyard. He's like, hey, how many ground horsepower does that have with the grass? Like, these components work together in tandem with each other with other components, man. You need fuel, you need power, you need a reactor for that power. Star Wars has never been sci-fi, like hard-fi. Like, it's always been fantastical, fast and loose with its magic system, with its science system, and its technology system.
Oh, and what did Watto tell them? Tell Qui-Gon when they needed a new T6 hyperdrive? He said it'd be cheaper to buy another ship. So you're not just buying hyperdrives. Like they literally don't have the resources for it.
But in Qui-Gon's defense, they did have the system for it. Right, their power system was leaking fuel, as they said in the movie, so they just needed a new system for it. And they had the ship. I don't care. We don't care if you hate these movies, if you love these movies, whatever. These are not plot holes. There are plot holes that exist in all of Star Wars, but most of the ones that we run into for the sequel trilogy is all, as I said earlier, doesn't make sense to me. I don't like these answers. I assumed this was what going to happen. It didn't happen. I expected something and it was subverted. These are all just things that, of course you can have your personal opinion that leads you to not like something. You can't use the word plot hole incorrectly to describe this stuff. But that'll do it for this video right here. Shout out to the creator. We don't we're not doing this in malice or anything. We don't want to send hate their way or anything. We're just correcting misinformation. I did want to react to some of the comments on that video though that have a lot of votes. This one says, Disney explanations. How you got the lightsaber? Good questions for another time. How Palpatine came back? Somehow. Well, how did Luke get his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi?
And as far as Palpatine is concerned, this ain't new. Like this has already happened, and this is actually done a lot better than it was in the expanded universe by making it a strand cast. It's not an exact clone, and that they've increased the difficulty of trying to clone a force sensitive being. That makes Star Wars so much neater than it was before. But again, if you just keep playing, you get some answers, and if you watch the scene of Kylo Ren walking, you can see some answers as well.
This one says, honestly, the Death Star shot isn't even a Mary Sue moment for Luke. He mentions bullseyeing womp rats, which are about the same size, establishing that he's at least had practice at hitting such a small target in a moving vehicle, something Rey is never shown or even explained to have done. You know what's never shown or explained to have done? Luke flying in space. You can point to this bullseyeing womp rats in Beggar's Canyon all you want. That's flying in atmosphere. He has no experience flying in space. Rey has flown before, but I don't know what you're bringing Rey in for this comment, because she doesn't blow up anything with her shots or her flying.
His eyes were closed. You guys are fundamentally misunderstanding the point of that scene in A New Hope. It was that he had to rely on the Force in order to do the thing. People who had the skills couldn't do the thing, but by relying on the Force, he could do the thing, right? And then for Rey, her version of that was her fight against Ben. She knows how to fight. She knows how to defend herself, but she was overwhelmed and she was in full retreat. It wasn't under her power that she was able to survive. It was by leaning into the Force. Like that's the purpose.
This one says, why is Luke being willing to kill Ben over a vision of him doing bad things when he literally redeemed Vader, committer of infinite atrocities? So it wasn't a vision of him doing bad things. It was a vision of him destroying everything that Luke loves.
And I hate this. I hate to bring this phrase in there, but again, media literacy. Like, Luke is not thinking about killing him. It is the purest moment of instinct. Luke is not focused on Ben. This is not an active, like, oh, I want to kill this kid. He's reacting, and then his focus snaps to Ben. So yeah, if you say he would never kill his nephew, you're right. That's the literal point of the scene. He wouldn't do it.
And he didn't.
And he never tries.
Also, the thing about when he redeems Vader, committer of infinite atrocities, Luke has never witnessed any of that. He only knew who was his father from episode 5. And then from then on, he was like, he's his long lost father that he never knew. If you want to go 1-to-1 with this scene, you put Luke in Return of the Jedi in front of Vader, and you give him a vision of every single thing Vader had done, slaughtering children, genociding planets, committing atrocity after atrocity. In that single moment, do you think Luke throws away the lightsaber that easily? I don't think so, because in that very scene, he threatens Leia, and Luke picks up the lightsaber and thrashes. So no, he's not. He hasn't witnessed Vader, his father, committing all of these atrocities. He's heard stories. All he cares about is that it's his father.
Also, the argument works against them because, like, Luke saw good in Vader, and yet he still tried to murder Vader several times and nearly bludgeon him to death. Luke didn't see light in Ben, and he didn't try to kill Ben.
This one says, as an honorable mention, I'd put the map that leads to Luke. How could this map have been created? Because Luke doesn't want to be found, so this map should never have existed. Where does Poe get the map from? Lor San Tekka.
The reason he has to get it from Lor San Tekka is because Luke deleted it. Luke didn't want to be found, but the map isn't to Luke. Me and Element 7 went to the movies and we met at the same place. I didn't have a map to him. We had a map to the same location. This is a map to the first Jedi temple. and so he had to get it another way. That's not a plot hole.
Also, it is in the movie. I mean, Han says, some say it's the map to the first Jedi temple. I mean, it's not the map to Luke. They're hoping Luke is at the first Jedi temple, so it is not a map to Luke. The last one says, Force healing is the biggest plot hole for me. The entire reason Anakin turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader was because he was told the dark side made Force healing possible. It's more or less explicitly stated that Force healing is not possible, and that anyone who claims to be able to do it is lying, and then out of nowhere, on a random lizard in an underground cave, Rey manages to perform Force healing at a moment's notice with no training. And Anakin's entire fall from grace was because of this power, and Rey just says, I cast healing word. So, I mean, that's a massive, like, reductionist view of what actually happened. Force healing has always been a thing in canon. They have an entire medical corps in the Jedi Temple. Barriss Offee is a healer. The reason Anakin wasn't able to use Force healing is because he's not a dyad with Padme. As the ability as it exists on the light side is Force mending, and it is a form of giving life energy.
I would also like to point out that Anakin never tried to learn Force healing. That's not what he was told. Like you said, it was more or less explicit. No, no, it wasn't. He said that Plagueis was able to use the Force to make life. The midichlorians create life. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to conquer life and death. That is different than Force healing. Because if he was just trying to heal her, then Anakin is the dumbest person in the galaxy, because he could have got some Bacta and got a doctor like on call. You know what I mean?
Yes. But also, like, this is
it wasn't about healing.
This also isn't a Disney thing, because in the Clone Wars we see Ahsoka being healed through life force transfer on Mortis. Now, granted, that's a extenuating circumstance, but it still shows them using the Force to transfer life, and that is a light side ability. They also make it a point to establish that the only reason Rey and Ben are able to transfer life to save each other is because they're a dyad. It is a power like life itself. It brings Palpatine back from this decayed nature. So even if Rey and Ben are able to heal each other to that extent, this isn't something that Anakin could have used to bring Padme back to life.
It's funny because if you read Plagueis, the Plagueis book, that's what Plagueis was trying to do.
Yeah.
He wanted to have Palpatine and him heal each other and stay alive forever. Like that was his whole thing. So that also predates Disney and everything else, which is kind of funny. But you also said it was done without training. She does train in between these two films, and she does have these ancient Jedi texts that were not at the Jedi Temple.
Like for 2,000 years.
Like every part of that complaint is wrong, and I just don't understand how so many people could get so much stuff wrong. In this one video and comment section, there is so much stuff that was just wrong.
I'm also like just now imagining how that would work with Plagueis and Palpatine, because they're coming from the dark side, right? So they don't have life force transfer. What they do have is essence transfer and drain. So I'm just imagining from the dark side perspective that they spend the next couple of years just draining each other. And they're not healing each other, they're just draining each other to replenish their own self, but in the process they're just continually corrupting each other. And even as
Ouroboros,
even in the pursuit of longevity, they would be decayed like Palpatine would be, because they wouldn't have, their vessels wouldn't be strong enough to contain all of that transfer. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to kind of dive into the comments section really quickly just to cover our bases there. If you want to leave comments on our video and let us know if there's any plot holes that we missed, because none of these are plot holes, try your best, leave your comments. We will engage and we will reply and we will shatter all of your notions of a plot hole, because
We will decimate all if we have to overnight parts from Japan.
anyways, Choco, what did we learn today?
We learn that Hector is bringing 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines and Motec exhaust.
Also, Motec doesn't make exhaust systems, which is why that sentence is funny. And as Luke says, amazing. Every word you said is wrong. May the Force be with you.